All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Ellen Richardson. I'm the Senior Director of Alumni Engagement here at NC State. And I'd like to start off by saying a special thank you to the team from the Office of Gift Planning for joining us today to talk about this important topic of estate planning and leaving a meaningful legacy for NC State. We appreciate everyone joining. Today's session is being recorded and will be shared out with everyone who registered for the session after today. And without further ado, I will turn it over to Katherine Miller.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ellen. Thank you so much for having Devin and I here today. We're excited to have the opportunity to speak with everybody over the next hour and hopefully share some interesting and helpful information. Again, just very appreciative to the Alumni Association and Wolfpack Women in Philanthropy for hosting this session for us to be here with you today. And I'd like to introduce my colleague, Devan Culbreth. Devan is our Associate Director of Planned Giving here at NC State. She will be assisting during the presentation. You'll see at the bottom of your screen a Q&A icon where you can submit questions throughout the session as you have them. And Devan will answer those. And for any that we can't get to, we're having Q&A at the end as well. So without further ado, I will put up my slides and we'll get started. So we'll just pop these up on the screen here. Just apologies, just a moment of apparently too many options on the screen to choose from. So let me cancel out of this. We get these slides up. Okay. Here we go. All right, apologies for that delay. So hopefully you are seeing those slides now. We'll get started. So as you know, the topic of today's session is creating your charitable legacy, ways to include NC State in your estate planning. As Ellen said, I'm Katherine Miller. I'm the Interim Executive Director of Gift Planning here at NC State. I've had the pleasure of working in the Office of Gift Planning for about 5 years, helping wonderful alumni and friends of the university include the university in their legacy plans and make really incredible impacts. So I'm honored to share some of that information with you. My objective here today is to introduce some basic information about planned gifts, which will include some easy ways to include NC State in your plans, to cover the advantages and considerations of using some of those different vehicle types. For example, why you might consider a gift in a will as opposed to a gift through your retirement account. I'd also like to spend a little bit of time at the end talking about some of the benefits of notifying NC State of those plans. So the most common types of planned gifts that we talk about or see, planned gifts also being referred to often as legacy gifts or deferred gifts, gifts that come through your estate. They all mean more or less the same thing. And some of those broad categories we often see are gifts in a will or a trust, if trusts are a part of your will and estate planning. Gifts through beneficiary designation, which can include both retirement accounts, such as your IRA, 401k, and similar accounts, but can also include bank or brokerage accounts that have the option to designate a beneficiary on those. And I'll get into the specifics of both of those categories in these coming slides. And then the third category is a little bit of a hybrid, a blended gift, those life income gifts. They are in part current gifts because transfers are made today and charitable deductions are available today, but they are a planned or legacy gift in the sense that although there's a transfer made today, the actual charitable gift does not come into play until you have passed away. And so in some respects, that is also what we would consider a legacy gift. So we'll kind of dive into those three categories and what the benefits of each of those might be. Gifts through a will or trust are wonderfully flexible and very, very popular. So oftentimes you are able to include a provision in your will or trust, if that's part of your estate plans, to leave a gift to charity, just as you would designate in the will gifts to individuals. Some of the advantages of doing that through a will or trust provision is that it's very easy to make a gift of either a specific dollar amount, if that's something you're interested in, making it a percentage of your estate, or designating very specific assets out of the estate to come to charity. It's very flexible in what you can designate in that provision. However, the flip side of that flexibility is that it does require an attorney, of course, to draft the will or trust. So whether that's putting your will in place for the first time or revising what you have, that is something, of course, that in order to put that provision in there, you would have to work with an attorney to do that. If that is a route that you are going, we have sample bequest language available upon request from our office that is very, very flexible. And donors are often really excited when they hear about this sample language that we can share. Of course, for you to share with your attorney, we always defer to your attorney's thoughts and recommendations. They are the experts. But many donors have found this flexible language allows them to put a gift in place in their will by broadly making a gift to the university and then working with us to add some specific designations around the use of that gift through paperwork we would put on file here at NC State, not as part of the will or trust itself. And what that means is that they are then able to revisit that very easily with us, throughout the course of their lifetimes, if they desire to make modifications and changes to that without having to actually redo the will itself, just to make a tweak in how they'd like their fund used, how their funds used at NC State. We often think of gifts through a will or trust being a really great option for donors who may have very specific objectives about dollar value, because it provides the ability to be specific about that, or with respect to certain assets that they want to gift, or donors who are currently working with an attorney to revise their estate plans, or who intend to do so in the short term. So separate and aside from any intention to support NC State that they may have, they are already actively doing or on the path towards revising their estate plans. And so it can make sense to kind of marry that gift to NC State into that process that they're already undertaking. On the flip side, gifts through beneficiary designation are a little bit different and have many of their own benefits. As I mentioned, that beneficiary designation is most commonly seen on retirement accounts, but can also be done on bank or brokerage accounts. Many institutions will allow you on certain bank accounts, savings accounts, or brokerage accounts, your investments, to request what is often called either a pay on death, a POD, or a transfer on death, TOD form to designate a beneficiary on that account. That's not something you likely did when you set up the account, because it's not required. If you, like it is of a retirement account to designate, that's not required typically on these accounts. If you do not request that form and make designations, those accounts are simply part of your overall estate, and they're distributed according to the instructions in your will. However, oftentimes you have the option to put a beneficiary designation in place on those accounts to move them outside of the instructions in your will and transferred according to those instructions that you put on file. So that's something that can be very appealing for folks. These gifts are fairly easy and fast to implement, and of course don't require you to visit your attorney. They simply require you to fill out that designation form with your custodian. Oftentimes you can do that online in just a matter of minutes. So it can be a very appealing option for folks who want to put a gift in place but aren't interested in revisiting their entire estate planning at the moment. They may already have a will in place. They're not particularly interested in revising that at this time, but they would like to include the university in their plans in some manner, and this can be a great option for doing so. With respect to the retirement accounts, for any retirement accounts that are pre-tax, so your traditional IRA, your traditional 401k, those are also tax advantaged gifts through your estate, which is very appealing to some folks. So as you know, when you take distributions out of those accounts, you of course pay income tax on those. And in that same vein, any individual that you would designate as a beneficiary on those accounts would also pay income tax on those distributions that they may receive in the future, just as you would. However, any portion of those accounts designated to charity transfers completely tax-free because, of course, charities don't pay income tax. And so in that sense, you're able to increase the size of your estate pie, if you will, a little bit by taking tax out of it and adding that piece back to charity. So that can be a great way to find some tax savings so that your children or grandchildren can get the non-taxable assets and you can make your charitable gift out of assets that otherwise would be taxable. When we think about this vehicle, which is becoming more and more popular, folks will ask, well, what are any considerations or drawbacks? It seems very quick and easy to implement. There can be tax savings. This is a great idea. I really like it. I hear that a lot from folks. And so what we talk about is typically these designations are done as a percentage. That's typically required by most custodians because of course they don't know what the ending value of the account will be. And so they simply designate as a percentage. And because of that, we know that the value on that gift may change. Of course, typically these assets are invested. You may be making contributions to those accounts. You're presumably making distributions from those accounts. And so that value will fluctuate over time. So if you have a really specific dollar value target in mind, it may not be in the optimal vehicle for you, but if you're willing to be a little bit flexible as to where the dollar value of that gift may be at the end of the day, it can be a great choice. Also, you have the option to update those designations at any time fairly easily. So of course, if the account value does fluctuate dramatically, you always have the ability and option to go in there and tweak that percentage designation up or down to accomplish your target, just as you always have the option to completely change the beneficiaries. We also talk a lot about the fact that this mechanism typically only allows you just enough room on that form to squeeze in the name of the institution that you want to benefit and their tax ID number, just as you would typically only have room to write an individual's name and their social security number. That's about all they give you on the form. And so, of course, you may want your gift to be used in a much more specific manner than an unrestricted gift to the foundation at large, which is very, very common. And we have a very simple process to accomplish that. Our statement of intent form, which is a very simple one-page form, we keep on file here for you to notify us of your intention to make a gift. And it provides room on that form for you to notify us of your more specific request for the use of those funds. So for example, should you name the North Carolina State University Foundation on your retirement account, you could then complete that form. We're happy to prepare that for you to specify that you want that gift to be designated to university libraries, or you want it to create a scholarship at the Poole College of Management, which falls under that foundation, or something of that nature. You're able to put in place specifics around that gift, even though you can't squeeze all that detail into that tiny little space they allot you on the form. So gifts through beneficiary designation can be a great option for donors who want to maximize the value of their estate and save taxes, or who want to implement a gift quickly and perhaps without visiting an attorney. The third category I mentioned was the life income gifts, our blended gift, a little bit of a current gift, a little bit of a deferred gift. The two most common types of life income gifts we see and options we offer here at NC State are a charitable gift annuity and a charitable remainder trust. And for our purposes, the gift annuity and the charitable trust are very similar in the mechanics of how they work. A transfer of funds is made today. A tax deduction is available today. there is a stream of payments back to the donor, and only once the donor and their spouse, if it's a joint gift, have passed away, does any portion of that go to charitable use here at NC State. So that's the legacy component, is once you have passed, whatever remains in that annuity contract or in that trust is then transferred to your designated gift purpose. There's a variety of options within those two vehicles to fit your needs for timing of payment stream. It can be a great option to diversify your portfolio in a tax efficient manner. So to speak a little bit on that, if you have some appreciated stock that perhaps you would like to diversify, but you perhaps don't want to recognize all of the capital gain you may have in that position, this can be a great option to diversify and make a charitable gift. Instead of selling the stock yourself and recognizing all those capital gains, if you instead transfer the stock to us and allow us to sell it through these charitable vehicles, then there is some significant tax deferral there. Now, because this is not an outright gift that we can take and use today, it does not completely wipe out the capital gains like it would if you just transferred the stock to us today and said, put it to work right away. But what it does allow us to do is to diversify it in that charitable vehicle so that the capital gains are deferred and recognized in very small increments over the course of your lifetime. So it can be a wonderful way to do some good, to diversify, to get some payments back, a lot of great benefits of that. And funding a charitable gift annuity is actually a very simple contract that we have on file here. So it can be a very quick and easy process. The specifics of gift annuities here at NC State, if that piques your interest at all, the payment rates we offer are based on the age of the income recipient. So the donor, and their spouse, if it's intended to be a joint annuity, we'd consider the ages there. We do use or follow the recommended rates from the American Council on Gift Annuities. It's a fairly standard practice for charitable organizations to follow those recommended rates, and we do align with that. Here at NC State, we require that a beneficiary be at least age 50 in order to execute a current annuity contract, which is where payments would begin within the next calendar quarter. If you are looking at deferred payments, as I mentioned, we have a lot of flexible options available. Deferred payments, we can look at as young as age 40, assuming a deferral until at least age 55. Oftentimes, folks might consider a deferred annuity if they're interested in funding the gift now in their later working years and having a tax deduction available, during their earning years, and know that this payment stream is in place that will begin to pay out in the future at their selected date. Oftentimes we see folks align that with when they anticipate retiring. So they look at this as a way to have an aligned income stream in retirement, but get the tax benefits of that today and fund it during their working years. As I mentioned, we offer joint life annuities for spouses. Our annuities start at $10,000 and can be funded with cash or appreciated stock. We are happy to provide illustrations of those for your specific situation anytime. So please let us know if that's of interest to you. Charitable remainder trusts operate in much the same way as the gift annuity. The transfer is made today. There's income received back, typically for a lifetime. It can be for a term of years, and the charitable gift comes to the foundation at the end of that trust period, which typically is at the end of your lifetime. The reason folks might consider a charitable remainder trust over a gift annuity is that it can be more flexible. Most folks don't need that additional flexibility, and therefore the annuity can be preferable because it does not require an attorney to draft it. It does not have the similar costs that you might see, the administrative costs that can be affiliated with a trust. But for folks in certain situations, it can make sense to have that flexibility. For example, in addition to cash and appreciated stock, you can fund a charitable remainder trust with real estate. So that's sometimes why we see folks choose this option, is if they'd like to turn former, rental properties, former vacation properties, diversify that, into a payment stream with the tax benefits of selling that through the charitable vehicle, it can make sense for them to go through the additional step of having a trust created because that there may be significant value that they're looking to contribute into that trust. As far as why you might be thinking of including NC State in your plans, we hear so frequently from the wonderful alumni and friends we work with that it's so important to them that their estate plan reflect their values and their priorities, that it really speak to the legacy they want to leave. They have organizations that they care about, they've been passionate about for many years, and they want to be able to leave a lasting impact there once they're gone. We hear from folks who want to pay it forward, whether that's because they themselves received scholarship assistance during their time at the university, or they received assistance in some other manner that they feel was critical on their path to success, whether that was a parent who sacrificed significantly to help them achieve their education, or a mentor that they had here on campus that really opened doors for them, that helped them envision a path they hadn't thought was possible. And they want to create that path forward for other students. We also have so many folks we hear from that are just so passionate about the different amazing areas here on campus. They're passionate about our athletics. So many friends of university who have received care for their beloved animals through our veterinary medical hospital and really want to honor their pets and the care that they received there, or so many other exceptional areas at NC State, and they want to be part of that continuing tradition of excellence. They want to help have their legacy be continuing such impactful work for future generations. We like to say that putting a planned gift in place can be so much easier than you think. We know estate planning can feel very daunting. It's typically not the first thing people want to talk about. They have so many more fun things to do than think about estate plans. But we all know how important it is to make sure that that is handled and put in place properly. And we like to make it easy as possible. Whether you're looking at a will or trust provision or a beneficiary designation, we always recommend having your first step be to contact our office, even just very, very basic conversation, right, to determine the correct foundation to include in your plans. Here at NC State, we have 9 different foundations. That's somewhat unusual for universities. Our peer universities don't typically have quite as many foundations as we do, which can make it easier to identify which foundation when there's only 1 or 2 to choose from. But since we do have so many foundations here, it's so important to identify legally on the documents the correct foundation. So we're happy to provide all of that information. The second step, once you know which foundation you're intending to support, is to take the legal step. So whether that is working with your attorney to draft and execute your will, or that is simply going online and executing your beneficiary designation with your account custodian, the actual legal elements of putting that in place in your estate plans. And then last is that very simple statement of intent I mentioned, to ensure that we have a file here of your intention, any additional information we need about that. So again, with that beneficiary designation, how specifically do you want that used? And presumably it may not be an unrestricted gift to the foundation at large. You may have more specific plans for that. So we could record that on that statement of intent to make sure that that can be honored when that gift is received in the future. And should your plans include, endowments, which scholarships, for example, if any provisions need to be put in place to create that scholarship, if it's not something that exists, we could talk about that as well. There are many benefits to sharing some of this information with NC State and having this conversation with us, both from a practical standpoint and just an enjoyment perspective. From a logistical perspective, for those of you that are very focused on getting the paperwork in order and making sure everything is accurate, I myself, you know, am very detail oriented, and so, you know, having all that paperwork, I's dotted and T's crossed is important to me. Notifying NC State can allow you, as I mentioned, to document restrictions on the use not reflected in the documents. Even if your gift is in a will, if that's something that you've put in place previously, and you may have left a very generic provision to NC State that just indicates the university at large, again, that statement of intent we could put on file here to more specifically direct the use of your gift. It could be that at the time you just put in the university at large, and now you would like to benefit, you know, a specific college, a specific program. We could work together to put those plans in place without you necessarily needing to revise the entire will itself. For some donors that have interest in benefiting multiple areas across campus, which may span different foundations, there is also a separate, very simple agreement we can offer through our office to simplify their estate planning, to route all of those funds through one foundation. That's something that does need to be coordinated ahead of time through our office in order to make that feasible. You know, but that is something that we can offer for folks that want to explore that. Again, if there's multiple areas of interest spanning multiple foundations, so that they don't have to necessarily list 3 or 4 foundations, you know, on the retirement account or in the will. And it can allow for a really meaningful conversation if you desire about the use of your gift, you know, especially in cases like endowments being created, you know, scholarships being set up to really talk about your vision for those student recipients. For our really passionate alumni and friends, there's also just a lot of benefits to being more deeply involved in what's going on here at the university through those conversations. Depending on your area of interest and what you're looking to support, we can offer opportunities for you to meet, you know, current scholarship students, faculty, researchers, whatever area you would like to support through your legacy, so that you have the chance to view that impact now. We are very aware of the fact that when we don't find out about these legacy gifts until we are notified at the donor's death, that takes away from us the opportunity to express our gratitude, to share our thanks with you, and to let you have opportunities to connect with some of these areas of campus that are the area you intend to support. And we so value the opportunity to provide that to you now, knowing that is your intention to support that in the future, to celebrate that now, which is when we have the chance to do it. For donors that do put plans in place in their estate planning, we recognize them, if they're willing, through our Pull-In Society. It is our giving society that is exclusively for donors making legacy gifts to NC State, and can provide through that society various opportunities on campus to connect with like-minded donors at NC State who are so passionate. They have really elevated us to the level of family. They have included us in their estate plans, which is so meaningful to us. And again, if you're willing, you know, not everyone is, but, you know, it can inspire others to be able to share your story and what is inspiring you to make that legacy gift. So there's just so many benefits to having those conversations now. And as I'll get into, I believe on the next slide, you know, we understand plans change. That does not at all change our desire to celebrate those intentions now. So some of the common questions we hear when folks are thinking about or interested in creating a planned gift is, you know, well, is putting this plan into place, you know, in my will or retirement account, or signing the statement of intent, is that binding? You know, I'm pretty young, and, you know, a lot could change in the next 30, 40, 50 years. You know, I need to know what I'm getting into. And it's a great question. Planned gifts, you know, gifts in a will or a trust or retirement account or the brokerage beneficiary designation are always revocable. You can change those at any time. You can always revise your will, go and change your beneficiary designations. There's nothing binding upon you from doing that. As I mentioned, our statement of intent is not binding upon you in any way. It states that on the face of the document. This is not legally binding upon you. It is just notifying us of your intention. That is the nature of planned gifts. Things change, circumstances change, and we understand that. We appreciate the ability to have these conversations now, because if plans change, then it was, it's just some paperwork in the file and it just stays there. But we would so much prefer to have had those conversations and do that paperwork and have the plans change than to not have that opportunity and to have those gifts come in that we weren't aware of and not have the chance to thank you, not have the chance to understand your intentions, not have the opportunity to really make sure that we can implement that as you envisioned. In a similar vein, folks will ask, well, I'm concerned 30 years is a long time and I may have medical care needs I don't anticipate now. What if there's nothing left at the end of the day? And they're very anxious about sharing that intention and then not being able to honor it. And what I like to tell folks is that we are honored that you have shared that intention with us. So please don't let that be the reason that you don't reach out. We understand nobody can see into that crystal ball 30 years from now. There's a lot of things we'd be doing if we could, right? But nobody has that insight. We are just honored that it is your intention. If circumstances change, they change, and it happens, but we still are so grateful for the opportunity to speak with you, celebrate you, make sure we have everything in order should that gift come into place in the future. Some folks will say, well, does it really matter, if I notify you, maybe you see the benefit for a designation to add that language here to designate that gift more specifically. But this person might say, well, I have a will provision and I was pretty specific and I don't really want engagement. And so maybe I just file that away and you'll just find out in the future. And of course, that is 100% within your decision and your discretion. We honor, your wishes. We're grateful that you thought of us. And if that's how you feel, we understand. I will say that there's often elements people don't consider that it really can be helpful to have these conversations. For example, if you were very specific in your will and you indicated you would like the funds to be used to create a scholarship, for example. Here at NC State, any endowed fund, including scholarships, requires an endowment agreement. That's an agreement that outlines the name of the endowed fund. Also, for example, with a scholarship, it would outline the student selection criteria. So is it students in a particular area of study? Is it need-based? Is it merit-based? Things like that. And that is something that the donor and the university both have to sign that agreement in order for that endowment to then be created. And if we receive a transfer of funds from an estate for that purpose, we would not be able to move forward with creating that endowment or administering those funds until we had that agreement on file. And so that then would fall to your executor. So it can be a gift to your executor, really, for you to have that conversation with us now, if that's your intention, so that when they are going through the very difficult process of closing out the estate and doing everything they need to do, that is not something else added to their plate, trying to sort out all of that with the university, but rather that's a conversation you've already had. The scholarship agreement is already on file. Everything is ready to go. And once those funds arrive, we're able to start moving forward with that. So that can be a really important reason to have those conversations now and give you the chance to work through that process with us for your selection criteria. So with that, I would say that if you think you may be interested in learning more about a planned gift, or perhaps if you have already included us in your plans and not previously notified us, please consider reaching out. My office is happy to have confidential conversations to explore with you whether it may make sense to document your gift. We're so grateful that you chose to spend this time with us, just learning a little bit more about what planned gifts mean and how you can perhaps put that in place at NC State. And we are available and eager to answer any questions you may have. And with that, I'm going to ask Devan if there's any questions that have come in already for Q&A.
As a matter of fact, there was one question, and the question was, and I've already answered this, but it was, do you have to be 70 and a half to transfer appreciated stock to receive tax benefits? And I answered that you do not have to be a certain age at all to transfer appreciated stock and receive the tax benefits. And then I explained that the 70 and a half age restriction, now 72, of course, is usually tied to required minimum distributions.
Yes, that's correct. So as Devan shared with this person that asked, there is no age minimum on outright transfers of appreciated stock to us from your regular brokerage account. If you'd like to make those gifts at any age, please feel free. And as she said, so 70 and a half is the age minimum in order to be able to make what is called an IRA qualified charitable distribution, or a QCD. As you may know, the rules have changed a bit recently, but now when you turn 72, you are required to take required minimum distributions from that account. However, you are eligible beginning at age 70 and a half. So before those required distributions kick in at 70 and a half, you are eligible to make a direct rollover of those funds from the IRA to charities, tax-free. So whereas if you took the withdrawal yourself, that would be taxable income, you are able to transfer up to $100,000 a year to charity without having that included in your taxable income. Happy to share more information about that if anyone's interested.
And there were no other questions. They're not keeping me very busy this time.
Well, I'm happy to wait a few more minutes in case anybody's busy typing away, but that's great. If there's no questions, hopefully that means everything was wonderfully clear. If it was not, and we're just a little shy about asking here in this forum, you'll see our contact information on the bottom of the screen there. I believe slides from this are also going to be sent out as well. Our contact information will be included in that as well. So again, please feel free to reach out with any questions you have. We're just really honored that you'd consider reaching out and having a conversation.
Okay, I did see one more question pop up just now.
Oh, someone asked for us to send a list of the 9 tax identification numbers for the foundations and associations.
Okay, yeah, I'm sure we can work on sending that out if that's desired. Also happy to answer any questions because of course some of the foundations are a little bit broad and it may not be clear which area you might want to use. So always happy to answer that question, but we certainly can make that available.
Mm-hmm. Oh, actually another question came through and hang on. Are there any donors who create plans that involve annual additional gifts to build up an endowment? That's a wonderful question.
Sorry, I'm just processing that question. I see it here. Are there any donors who create plans that involve annual additional gifts to build up an endowment? I hope I'm answering this in the manner that the person has intended to ask it, but if not, please feel free to clarify. But yes, for folks who are interested in creating an endowment, that can be done over a period of years. So endowments can be created through your estate plans. Endowments can also be created currently. The typical pledge is up to 5 years to create an endowment. Endowments are start at $50,000 at NC State right now. So that can be pledged over up to 5 years. And we certainly have donors who fund those and continue to make annual gifts to them. We do also have a process in place for donors who intend to fund the endowment as a legacy gift. to create, to make annual gifts to that endowment, even though the endowment ultimately is actually being fully funded through their estates. That's a little bit more of a detailed conversation, but for folks who want to endow that through their estate, there is a process to make annual gifts to that as well. If that was not exactly what you're asking, I apologize, but please please feel free to reach out so we can talk further.
All right. Well, seeing no further questions, I would just like to take this opportunity on behalf of the Alumni Association and Wolfpack Women in Philanthropy to thank you both for your expertise and sharing that with us today. This is a session in a series of offerings that those recordings are all available on the Alumni Association's YouTube channel. This one will be added there as soon as we get the recording processed, and it will be sent out to everybody who registered for today's session and all of you listening here today. So again, thank you so much for your time, everybody, and for sharing your expertise, Katherine and Devan, and everybody have a great day.
Mm-hmm.